Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, whose true name is Yahweh, through his only begotten Son, whose true name is Yahweh Shai, whom this world ignorantly calls Christ. Shalom to the brothers and sisters, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans who are the true Israelites according to the Bible. Shalom, shalom. So the title of this video is called Brotherly and Sisterly Love, because as these last days begin to wax worse and worse, we're going to see the love of many wax cold. And so, like Chief Alazar from Sakari, he mentioned that knowing breakdowns isn't going to get you the kingdom. Knowing Daniel chapter 7, knowing Daniel chapter 9, knowing Revelation 13, 17, 18, knowing, what's another thing? Ezekiel 36, Ezekiel 46, 45, all these deep breakdowns are not going to get you the kingdom if you don't have brotherhood. If you don't know how to truly love your brother and you secretly have bitterness, hatred, and envy, that's gonna be a stumbling block from you. You can ultimately lose your place in the kingdom. Lord willing, that's not the case, but that is the purpose of this video or this live, is to really hammer home the point of brotherly and sisterly love amongst all congregations, amongst all camps. All right, and so I'll start off with 2 Corinthians chapter 13. That's my screen. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5. Okay. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 5. Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Yahushua HaMashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. So in these last days, we got to take even more heed to our spirits, to examine ourselves even more, especially when it comes to our people and our brothers, or whatever congregation you might be in. You want to examine yourself to truly see if you believe, truly see if you have the faith, and your faith is provoking you to do more works towards your people, to show more love towards your people, right? Know ye not your own selves, how that Yahushua Mashiach be in you, except you reprobates. Because if you're not doing these things, you might as well be a reprobate. You might as well continue doing the things that are unprofitable, because you're already not doing the things that are expedient for you in this truth. I don't want to jump the gun, but I want to get something really quick. 2 Peter 1, chapter 5, and I start at verse 5. 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 5. Besides all this, giving all diligence, I'll read over. 2 Peter 1 and 5. And besides this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge. So add to that virtue that you have from your faith knowledge. Continue to grow, continue to increase your learning, continue to study, apply, and do the things that you need to in this truth, right? And to knowledge, temperance, have that self-control. And to that temperance, with self-control, have patience. With that patience, godliness. And to godliness, brotherly kindness. And what are you going to add once you have that patience, that temperance, that godliness, that knowledge, that faith? You're going to have that brotherly kindness. And that brotherly kindness is going to promote you to do more charitable things. And that charity is really just going into you loving your brothers. And that charity is really just you going into showing that love. All right, so now you got to put on all these things. And this is a scripture, these couple of scriptures I advise brothers and sisters to meditate heavy upon, because this is really going to keep you in that mindset of examination and seeing how you can move better in this truth. All right, so now let's go to 1 Corinthians. Let's go to Haggai. Haggai chapter 5 and verse 1. It's very important that we take heed to these things and really show that sincere effort to want to get right in these last days. Because it's not too long before these doors shut, and it's not too long before that window of getting yourself right is closed. And so you want to take advantage of this opportunity that the Most High God has given us through His Son. Right? This is Haggai chapter 1 and verse 5. Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Brother, consider your ways. Sister, consider your ways. Even myself, I'm not just saying this to whoever may see this, but I'm saying this about myself as well. I always have to consider my ways. I always have to examine myself constantly, day in and day out. And I advise the same for you brothers and sisters. Right? So let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 12. So this is 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 12. Wherefore, let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. So don't be now. There's nothing wrong with being confident in the Most High God. There's nothing wrong with you moving in a manner as to where you're not boasting and you're not exalting yourself more than measure, but you're humble and you're meek, but you still have confidence. What you don't want to do is to exalt yourself and to think, oh, I overcame that a long time ago. It's not gonna come back. I'm good. I can do this, I can do that. These spirits won't touch me like that. I'm good. Not knowing that if you walk in that type of pride, you can get jammed up. I'll just put it that way. You can get caught up and you can slip up because you're walking in that prideful manner as if nothing can touch you and you couldn't slip or fall. So you want to take heed lest you fall. You want to constantly examine yourself and be in that lowly state of mind, like, okay, I can always do better. I can always grow in this area. I can always do this better. And how much more towards this topic? I can always love my brother this way. I can always help my brother this way. It doesn't always have to be physical, even though sometimes you can give money, you can lend a hand physically, whatever brothers may need assistance with, but it can also be spiritual. All right, so now let's go to Proverbs 21 and 26. This is Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 26. He coveteth greedily all day long, but the righteous giveth and spareth not. So the righteous is going to give to his brothers. The righteous is not going to spare. He's not going to make up excuses in his mind to where, oh, I can't help that brother, that sister, because I want to do this for me. I want to help this for me. And he's making up all these things as to why he can't. Well, he won't. I can say he can't because some brothers genuinely can't. Some sisters genuinely can't. I'm not speaking to those. I'm speaking to those that have it and disregard their brothers and their sisters. All right, so you don't want to be that brother or sister just greedy, holding up all these treasures just to say they're saved, and you know you can help your brothers and sisters to some extent, right? But you want to spare that, but you'll touch on, we'll expound upon what we mean by you should spare and that the righteous will give. All right, so now let's go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 4. Well, we go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 29, and we'll start at verse. Let's expound on the righteous giving and sparing not. So we'll start at this is Ecclesiastes chapter 29, and I'll start at verse 1. He that is merciful will lend unto his neighbor, unto his brother or sister. And he that strengtheneth his hand keepeth the commandments. Right? We know. Lend to thy neighbor in his time of need, and pay thou thy neighbor again in due season. Meaning, there's nothing wrong with you lend to your brothers. Literally in our law that we would help our brothers and sisters. Even if you might disagree with them, even if you might not be on the best of terms, you still have that mercy. You should still have that merciful nature towards your own people. You're not going to get that same mercy from these other nations. You're not going to get that same mercy from people in this world. Hey, you might not even get the same mercy from our brothers and sisters, but we as brothers and sisters who are truly trying to be sincere, truly trying to walk in this truth and faith and keep this law, we're going to strive to be merciful, right? So you're going to lend to your brother in time of need, and you're not going to hold back your hand when it's time for you to give back to your brothers if you borrow something from them. As it talks about, and pay thou thy neighbor again in due season. Don't try to hide the money that you may have borrowed or the help you might have received from a brother or sister, and then act as if you don't have it. As he'll continue to explain if you read on. But I want to jump down. So here. This is Ecclesiastes 29. Let's start at verse 8. This is Ecclesiastes 29 and verse 8. Yet have thou patience with a man in poor estate, as we just read in 2 Peter chapter 1 and verse 5 through 7. That man who's adding all these things to his faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, brotherly kindness, charity. He has all of these virtues and attributes. He's going to be patient. And he's going to have that self-control dealing with the man in his poor state. And he's not going to delay that mercy that should be shown unto him, as he understands he will want mercy from the Most High, and that giving unto that poor brother and sisters like he giving unto the Lord. Right, verse 9. Help the poor man for the commandment's sake, and turn him not away because of his poverty. Don't look down upon him. Don't look down upon her. Don't look the other way because of their poverty, not knowing that the Lord can do that same thing to you. He can take away your riches and give it to them or give it to someone else, and then now you're in a poor state looking for that mercy for someone else. So we got to be careful with that as well. Like this is a serious matter. All right, let's read on. Ecclesiastes 29:10. Lose thy money for thy brother and thy friend, and let it not rust under a stone to be lost. See, now you don't want to take this scripture and then say, see, now I gotta lose all my money. I'm just gonna give everything away. Let's be let's use wisdom. Right? Verse 10 is just saying that if you have it, help your brother and don't be afraid to give to your brother in the time that he may lack. Don't be afraid to give to that sister in the time that she may lack. Right? Because if you're doing that, it's like you're giving it to the Lord, as I just explained. Right? So because that's why it says later in this same verse, and let it not rust under a stone to be lost. Don't just gain up all this treasure, all these resources just to be sitting around. You have no use for it. You don't need it. You know your brothers and sisters need help, but you're not using it. That's kind of going off. You know your brothers and sisters are in a destitute state, especially as a nation, and you're just letting your riches sit back like, I'm good. I'm content. That's all I need. I don't need to do anything else. I'm good. No, brother, help your brothers, help your sisters. Show that brotherly and sisterly love as the Lord commanded, and even more so his son commanded. All right, so now let's read on to verse 11. Lay up thy treasure according to the commandments of the Most High, and it shall bring thee more profit from gold than gold. Because keeping these commandments, having the faith, that's going to bring you more profit than having any type of riches in this vain world. All right, so now I want to go to something really quick. It might be 12. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 1. When thou wilt do good, know to whom thou doest it. So shalt thou be thanked for thy benefits. So know who you're doing good to. Be, Lord willing, you may have that discernment to see who you're truly helping. If they're sincere, if they're not gonna misuse how you help them, they're not gonna abuse your help and all, or whatever the case may be. Verse 2. Do good to the godly man, and thou shalt find a recompense. So if you have that godly sister, that godly brother, you're gonna receive a recompense, a payment, a repayment. I mean, to recompensate. You're gonna receive a reward for that good that you've done unto that brother or sister. And if not from him, yet from the Most High. So if you don't receive that that recompense, that repayment, or you're not recompensated from that brother or sister, the Lord is gonna recompensate you. It can be physical. The Lord can give you certain increase physically, but it can also be spiritually so that you can be built up more in this truth and you can do more for your people. All right, so now let's go to Ecclesiastes 4 and 23, because I want to touch on the spiritual aspect. Now, there's nothing wrong with you helping your brothers and sisters physically from time to time, and even more than time to time. But you can't negate spiritual aspect as well. So this is Ecclesiastes 4 and 23. Okay. So like, yeah. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 23. And refrain not to speak when there's an occasion to do good, and hide not thy wisdom in her beauty. So you don't want to hide your wisdom from brothers and sisters who may lack, who might not have certain knowledge, a certain understanding in the area, and you do. Here it is. These brothers and sisters are sincerely trying to seek this word out, sincerely trying to do what is right in the sight of the Most High God, and have that brotherly and sisterly love, and really understand their culture, their heritage, and the things that pertain unto them in this law. And here it is, you just hiding up the wisdom that you know. Like, yeah, I know this brother or sister need help, but I'm not gonna help them. I'm gonna just know what I know, and then that's it. Brother, no. Help that sister, help that brother get the understanding so they can be able to help someone else who may have these questions. Right? So you don't want to be that brother just holding up all this knowledge and you're not telling your people. Right? So now let's go to Ecclesiastes 20. You're gonna hammer home the same point. It's Ecclesiastes 20 and verse 30. Wisdom that is hid and treasure that is hoarded up, what profit is in them both? What profit is there for all that treasure you're hiding up? As we just read in We got the previous verse we just brought out in Ecclesiastes chapter, what was it? I forget, but here's Ecclesiastes chapter 20, verse 30. Wisdom that is hid and treasure that is hoarded up, what profit is in them both? What profit is there for you to hide your wisdom? Is Ecclesiastes chapter 20, verse 30. So lock it. Wisdom that is hid and treasure that is hoarded up, what profit is in them both? It's Ecclesiastes chapter 20, verse 30. Wisdom that is hid and treasure that is hoarded up, what profit is in them both? Now, in the same way you have a lot of treasure, you might have a lot of resources to build. If you're just letting that sit up, you don't need it, you don't use it, you don't see how to help your brothers and sisters with it, you're just keeping it just to keep it. That's the same way as likened unto wisdom. If you have this understanding, you have this knowledge, and you know your brothers and sisters need this help spiritually to know who they are, to know how this law pertains only to them, knowing how they can get right with the Most High God in these last days through His Son, Yahweh. It's the same thing. You're holding up all this knowledge and this increase, well, holding up all this resources spiritually to where you're not helping your people. What profit is that then? What are you gaining from just hiding that stuff from your people who really need this? You're hiding this stuff from the people that really need this. And the Lord, if you're really going about and procrastinating this way, the Lord can take that from you and give it to someone else and build them up to where they want to truly help that people. So this isn't anything to be playing around about. It's something to really consider and examine yourself on. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes 41 and verse 15. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 41 and verse 15. A man that hideth his foolishness is better than a man that hideth his wisdom. So a man that hides his foolishness, a sister that hides her foolishness, is better than a man who has understanding, who has knowledge, who has wisdom, but refuses to tell it or hides it in the sight of being that light to his people. You understand it? Right, being that light to his people. And when you really go into Ecclesiastes 41, it begins to go into, like, I believe it might be after these couple of verses or above, where it talks about the things you should be ashamed of. So you should be ashamed to hide that wisdom from your people, knowing it's for their good. So this is Ecclesiastes. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 8. So we dealt with how we can physically help our brothers and sisters, whether they be in poor estate or they be a godly man or woman. Right, so I want to touch on that again. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 8. Let it not grieve thee to bow thine ear to the poor, and give him a friendly answer with meekness. So you might have a poor brother or sister, whether you do camp, whether you're passing out flyers, whether you even not doing camp, or if you just see your brothers and sisters and you know they need this word. There's nothing wrong with you helping that brother or sister with clothes, with food, with water, because we know we have to use wisdom. We don't want to give them resources they can abuse and be led to sin. But my point is going here is to show and explain that if you see a poor brother or sister, it can be in the world, they're in the truth. You shouldn't be afraid to bow down that ear, to hear them out, and to give a fair answer and encouragement with meekness out of this word. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I would advise brothers and sisters to try to do that more, to really show that brotherhood and sisterhood, even amongst people who may not have this truth, who may not have the understanding yet. But Lord willing, it can be up to you to tell them to relay this message onto them so the Lord can build them up. I want to get something real quick because what is saying First Corinthians? What is saying First Corinthians? This First Corinthians chapter 6, 3 and verse 6. Salakia. I have planted, Apollo watered, but God gave the increase. So then, neither is he that planteth anything, neither he that watereth, but God giveth the increase. So you can plant, you can tell their brother or sister in meekness this friendly word. You tell them this word at the friendly answer. You can meet them where they're at and really expound upon the things that they need at that moment while also helping them. And you can let the Lord work from there because he's the one that ultimately gives the increase. He's the one that removes those veils and gives the understanding. Let's go to Psalms 146 and 8, I believe. This is Psalms 146 and 8. The Lord openeth the eyes of the blind. The Lord raiseth them that are bowed down. The Lord loveth the righteous. So we see that the Lord is the one who opens the eyes because he really gives the understanding. All knowledge comes from him at the end of the day. And so he's going to raise up those that are bowed down. He's going to exalt the humble. He's going to be there for the lowly. And he also loves the righteous. And that's the cut to Christians or anyone who disagrees that you doing the works of the Most High doesn't mean it pleases him. When he just said he loves the righteous, right? So that's just understanding that the Lord is going to remove those veils, but he can use you, brother or sister, to really give that word to that brother or sister so he can start working on it. So now let's go to Ecclesiasticus 29, verse 20. You go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 29 and verse 20. Help thy neighbor according to thy power, and beware that thou thyself fall not into the same. So you want to help your brother or sister to how much you can allow yourself to help them. And what I mean by that is if you know you have enough to where you can support brothers and sisters and help them get by, then do it. It's literally a commandment that we should help our people if they're in a poor state with dealing with us in our land. Right. So how much more now when we can still show that same love? We're gonna expound upon even with teachings of Yahushua. But the point of me going here as well was to show that if you can help your brother to the best of your ability, do it. Be that brother, be that sister who want to show that love through their actions and not through just vain talking. Right. But beware, meaning don't just disregard wisdom and just give all that you have because you don't want to be in that same condition as to where now you're in that poverty, you're in that need, and you gave all that you have knowing that you should have used wisdom, not disregarding the help of your brothers, but also not disregarding your own sake and having that balance. So now let's go to Proverbs 18:24. Now you want to help your brother to the best of your ability. You want to help your sister to the best of your ability. Because that's really showing that love that the most loving thy neighbor as thyself. Salaki, I cut up on my words. That's truly loving thy neighbor as thyself, because you're not gonna do yourself wrong. Brothers and sisters who truly are walking sincerely and trying to love themselves in that God, you're not gonna do yourself wrong. You're not gonna do yourself a disservice. So how much more should you apply that same principle, that same aspect of the way you think towards your people? Let's go to Proverbs chapter 18. This is Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 24. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. So I charge brothers and sisters, I even charge myself, shoot, to be that brother that stick close to that other brother, that other sister, to be there for them. Because some brothers and sisters, they don't have anyone. And the Lord can place you in their life to be that helping hand, to be that support, to be that brother or sister that sticks close to them through anything and everything they may got to go through. And how much more when you in this truth, you understand this word and wisdom that's in it, and you're applying it. How much more is the Lord going to use you to help that brother and sister and build them up if it be His will? So these are some of the things we got to consider. So now let's go to Proverbs 17 and verse 17. A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. So whenever you're going through adversity, you might have that one brother you can call, you have that one sister you can call, and they give you some wise counsel as to where you that keeps you going in this thing, that keeps your spirit on fire, it keeps that fire going inside of you to where it's not diminished as to when you're catching that affliction or that hell or that judgment. That brother and that sister is going to be born, they're going to be built up enough to where they can help you get the understanding that you need in the time of your trouble. How much more you, if you're walking in that same manner, examining yourself, applying the principles in our law, applying the principles in the wisdom that's in our text, and seeing the history of how our forefathers showed brotherhood, how much more should that want to build you up to do the same towards your people? Now, so now let's go to Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1. Because this is all still dealing with the realm of helping thy brother to the best of your ability. Because if it's within your ability to help your brother and you don't, how is that loving your neighbor as yourself? How much more is that like you pretty much treating them like the heathen would treat them, looking down upon them, not having any mercy on them, really not trying to help them at all, but you just claim that you love them? You can't be moving like that, especially in this truth when we know how our God gets down, how we know how Yahweh gets down, what He commands and what He expects from us. All right, this is Galatians chapter 6, and I start at verse 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual. Did it say carnal? No, it said ye which are spiritual. Because you know a spiritual man judges all things, paraphrasing greatly. Restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. So this is Galatians chapter 6 and verse 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. So you want to consider yourself when you're giving that counsel to that brother or sister, and you're giving them advice on how they should move forward, dealing with their affliction, judgment, or trial. So you want to be in that lowly estate, knowing you can be tempted with the same thing. So that same counsel you give to that brother or sister should apply to you 10 times more. Verse 2. Bear ye one another's burden, and so fulfill the law of Christ. Because Yahweh Shai, He fulfilled our burdens. He took on all of these infirmities, all of these things we deal with in the flesh, and He showed us that you can overcome it. So how much more should you want to help your brothers and sisters overcome it as well by bearing their burdens? Being that brother born for adversity, being that sister born for adversity, and really being there for your brothers and sisters in general with anything that they need. All right, so now let's go to Deuteronomy 15 and verse 7. This is something I want to touch on because it's in our law how we should treat our people. Not hiding ourselves from our brothers and sisters, which now it's really helping our brothers and sisters to the best of your ability. Not hiding yourself from them, even if you might have disagreements with them, you still show the action of loving them by still helping them. All right, this is Deuteronomy 15, and I start at verse 7. If there be any among you a poor man of one of thy brethren within any of thy gates, no matter where they are, in thy land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not harden thy heart, nor shut thy hand from thy poor brother, but thou shalt open thy hand wide unto him, and shalt surely lend him sufficient for his need in that which he wanted. So yes, in context is dealing with us in our land, but it still is the whole principle of loving thy neighbor as thyself. You can still take away the principle of not hardening your heart or shutting your hand from your brother who's in lack and needs help in time of need, as we just demonstrated with previous scriptures we brought out. Verse 8, as we just read, you shall open your hand unto him, and you shall lend him sufficient for his need. Now, as you just read in Ecclesiastes 29 and 20, you want to help him to the best of your ability, not disregarding wisdom as to how you disregard your own sake and how you have to sustain yourself and your family if you have one. But you also don't disregard your brothers as well. So if you can lend sufficient for him, then do it. But if you can only help a little, that's still showing that love because you want to show that sincere effort of helping. That's now jump down to verse 11. It's Deuteronomy chapter 15 and verse 11. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore command thee, saying, Thou shalt open thy hand. Therefore I command thee, Slack is saying, Thou shalt open thy hand wide unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in the land. There's a time there's always gonna be poor. Not a time. That's when we in our land. There's always gonna be poor, the poor among us. And so we should always commanded to open our hand to our brothers and sisters in that time of need. Right? Now, let's go to Leviticus 19 and 17. Let's get into the law. Even though we already went to the law, we're gonna get more on it. So let's go to Leviticus 19 and verse 17. This is Leviticus 19 and verse 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, meaning correct them, and not suffer sin upon him. Because if you truly love your brothers and sisters, you're gonna correct them. You're gonna, well, I don't say chastity. You're gonna correct them in the areas where they like, or if they're going off. When you say going off, you mean sinning, going against the laws. That's what sin is: transgression of the law. So if you see a brother and sister transgressing the laws of the Most High, you can discern some's not right with their brother or sister. You gotta correct them. Now it can be in various forms, but nonetheless, you're still showing that love because you're correcting them. And that's one of the ways you can help your brothers and sisters and show that love. You correcting your brothers and sisters when they're doing wrong. That's true love. Now in the world, they don't see that as love. They just see, oh, you're judging me. You can't do that. You can't tell me what to do. You're not my dad. You're not this. You're not that. And they make, because people in the world, let's be honest, they can't accept correction. Without this word and really applying this truth into your life, you're liable to not want to receive that. Well, I won't say liable because the Lord can do whatever He wants, but typically our people don't like correction. They want to be comfortable doing what they want to do and having no one tell them about their wrongdoings. But we're not supposed to be like that once we understand who we serve, the God that we serve, and who we are as a people. All right, so now let's go to Leviticus 5 and 1. This is Leviticus chapter 5 and verse 1. And if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing and is a witness, so if you see a soul swing or you hear someone swearing and you're a witness to it, meaning you're around, you heard it, you've seen and heard it, whether you have seen or known of it, whether you've seen it or you know of it, and if you do not mention it or you do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. And that iniquity is going to be on your hand because you've seen that brother and sister go off, you've seen that brother and sister swear. Now, swearing isn't you saying damn, hell, and the stuff Christians follow. What Christians make it today. Swearing just deal with you making oaths, and then also, yeah, swearing is you just dealing with oaths and making promises. Right, but nonetheless, the point of this scripture me bringing it out was to show that you're still supposed to show that brotherly and sisterly love, going back to Leviticus 19 and 17, not suffering sin upon your brothers and sisters and correcting them when they're wrong. Because if you don't, you're going to bear that same iniquity. All right, so let's go to Hebrews 13 and 3. We go to Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 3. 13 and 1, Salakia. Let brotherly love continue. So you want to let that brotherly love continue, that sisterly love continue to really exemplify the Most High God, to really show that you love your people, showing that you love the Most High God, because this is in our law, how we're supposed to deal with our people. You're not supposed to serve merchandise to them. We're supposed to correct them when they're wrong. We're supposed to help them, even though we might disagree, and we're not supposed to hide ourselves from them. On Deuteronomy 22, I believe, in Exodus 23. So these are all principles we need to apply constantly and all the time. Because, like I always mention, we're not going to receive this love from people in the world or from heathen. I'm not saying we should want to receive love from heathen. I don't advise that at all. But my point of saying is that everyone and everything in this wicked kingdom is against us. So how much more should we want to show even more love to our own people who understands that everything's set against us? Right. So this is Romans chapter 12 and verse 10. Be kindly affection one to another with brotherly love and honor, preferring one another. So you want to prefer your brothers and sisters. Prefer your own people rather than these heathens. Stop trying to Jake that's in the world, Eve that's in the world. Stop trying to seek validation and approval from these other nations that don't give a damn about you. They don't care what you do. They can talk all they want. They don't care about what you do. They don't care about the condition of your people. So we gotta stop cleaving to these other nations and cleave to our own and build our own selves up through the spirit of the most high. But you want to prefer yourself, you want to prefer one another, brothers and sisters who are in this truth as well, and show that brotherly love. And not just saying you love your brothers, you love your sisters, but actually showing it through your actions. Letting your actions speak for you instead of you just using vain words. Because that's how the Most High, He looks at us. He looks at our hearts, but He also looks at us according to our works, according to what we do, and if it matches up to what we say. All right, so now let's go to 1 Thessalonians 5 and 14. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 14. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly. Warn your people. Now this is a wisdom that you can apply as well. Warn your people who are unruly. Comfort the feeble-minded. Comfort those who might be a little more weak-minded. Those who might not be as built up as you are. Those who might need more strength. Right? Support the weak, as we just touched on. And be patient towards all men. Be patient towards your people, because it goes right back to one of the attributes you will have if you add to your faith virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, so on and so forth. So you doing that, you're gonna be able to support the weak, comfort the feeble-minded, and warn them that are unruly, right? And that's all gonna allow you to be patient towards your people in general. So now let's go to Romans 15 and 1, because this is still gonna touch on the topic of Galatians, of helping their brother to the best of your ability. And this is Romans chapter 15 and verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. Right? Right, because you want to, how can I say this? I'll read it over. This is Romans chapter 15, verse 1. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. So you want to be, if the Lord has allowed you to be built up, you might be 10 years, 5 years, 4 years, 15 years in His truth, and He allowed you to be strong spiritually. You're supposed to be able to bear the infirmities of the weak, support the weak, comfort the feeble mind. As you just read in Galatians, comfort your brother paraphernalically in meekness, knowing that you also may be tempted. So you want to be patient towards all men. You want to comfort your people, support the feeble mind in a state of meekness and lowliness, right? Not wanting to please yourself, but just have this glory, this what's the word? Have this image to yourself, like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, I helped that brother and sister. Yeah, that was me. Like, you don't want to be walking in that type of spirit, because ultimately the Lord just used you to comfort that brother and sister. You didn't do anything. All right, so now let's go to Hebrews 3 and 13. This is Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 13. But exhort one another daily, while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. So you always want to, as much as you can, exhort your brothers and sisters while it's called today, while we still have that time to build one another up before all catastrophe breaks loose, before you won't have this opportunity to be on the internet, before you don't have the opportunity to see your brothers in the flesh that have feast days, to gather with the congregation, to do this work on the highways and hedges. You want to be able to exhort yourself and exhort your brothers and sisters even more, as much as you can, daily if possible. And it goes for me as well. While it is called today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. Because you don't want to give your mind over to things of this world so much as to where sin starts to creep in It starts to deceive you slowly and slowly. Now I can touch on a separate topic, but we'll save that for another time about not contending with small things, right? But back to the topic, at least strive, at least show that attempt to want to exhort your brothers and sisters daily. Show that love to your people to where you want to see them get right and you want to joy in their prosperity. Not be envious, not be covetous, and not be bitter because of success they may have, even in its truth. But you want to joy in that, knowing that the Lord is working on them and He's magnifying His name through them. All right, so now let's go to 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 7. We touched on that, okay. Kind of jumped the gun. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 40 and verse 24. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 40 and verse 24. Brethren in help are against time of trouble, as we just read in Romans chapter 15, Galatians chapter 6, Proverbs 18, Proverbs 17, Ecclesiastes 29. All of these are dealing with helping your people and building them up, right? I'll read it over. Ecclesiastes 40 and 24. Brethren in help are against time of trouble, but alms shall deliver more than them both. So you're going to have that brother who is a help. He's going to deliver you from times of trouble, or physically, spiritually, or mentally. But alms as well is going to deliver more than them both. Because alms can be money, it can be resources, but it doesn't always have to be. It can be spiritual upliftment. It can be just being around a brother and building with him on commonalities. Any way to help their brother stay strong in the spirit. That can be considered an alm. All right, so now let's get some teachings of Yahushua. Because how do Yahushua know if you love your brothers? How do you know if you follow Yahushua? Let's get something that he said himself. So this is John chapter 13 and verse 35. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you love one another. I'll read it over. I'll read it slower. This is John chapter 13, verse 35. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. So that's truly how we're going to know if we're disciples of Christ, of Yahushua. That's how we're truly going to know if we're disciples, if we have that true love one to another. Now, this isn't Christ talking to this isn't Christ telling us, speaking to this audience as loving Gentiles. This isn't speaking to Christ saying, love one another, mean just love all Gentiles, just love everybody. That's not what he's saying. He's talking about amongst our people, we ought to love one another. The same thing that's been echoed in Matthew about loving thy neighbor as thyself. The same thing that's being echoed from the law. And who is the law given to? The Israelites, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Right, so now let's go to John chapter 15 and verse 13. This is John chapter 15 and verse 13. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends. So that's the greatest amount of love a brother or sister can have for their people, is giving their life for their brothers and sisters. Did not Yahushua do that? Is he not our example? Why would he teach us this if he didn't do this himself, which he did? So this is our example. This is one of his teachings, that we have to love one another, and that we have to lay down our lives for our friends, our brothers and sisters who are in this truth, and even in the world. How much more is that? How much more love is that? Right. So I'll jump up to verse 12. This is my commandment, that ye love one another as I have loved you. So we're supposed to love our brothers and sisters the same way that Yahushua loves us. Now let's go to John 15 and 17. Let's jump down. These things I command you, that ye love one another. And we can go to Deuteronomy 18 and 18 about that, speaking about Yahushua. We can prove that, but just on the whole topic of brotherly and sisterly love, if we don't listen to that prophet that the Most High is going to send, which was Yahushua, it's going to be required of us. So this is one of the things he's commanding us, that we love one another. And that literally stems from the law, which is what Christ teaches. He teaches to have faith in him and to have faith in him, and keep the law. So now let's go to John chapter Now let's go to Matthew 22 and 37, just to get the point I was speaking on about how Yahweh said you should love our neighbor as thyself. Okay, this is Matthew chapter 22 and verse 37. Yahweh said unto him, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. So love the Lord with all your heart, mind, and soul. Do it to the best of your ability and really strive to cleave unto the Most High and His Word, right? Have faith in Him and His Son. Read on. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Now you might have Christians, might have Hebrew Christolites that might say, Hebrew Christolites, I mean, people who know they are Israelites but still cleave onto Christian doctrine. They might say, oh, see, these are only two commandments. You don't have to keep everything else. But he, in later chapters, I mean, the previous chapter 19, he gives a list of the 10 commandments. And then he lists one that's not even in the 10. So to say these are only two commandments you have to follow is inaccurate. And that's not a true understanding of the text. But back to the point is that when it said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God, that's the first commandment, to love our God. We know loving the Most High means keeping His commandments, right? And the second is onto this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, because what's in the commandments? Loving your people. Let's get that. Because if you truly love your people, you're not going to do these things that we're commanded not to do to our people. All right, so now let's go to Exodus 20. Because if you truly love your brother, you're not going to kill your brother. You're not going to murder your brother. That talks about later in Exodus 21, I believe. You're not going to commit adultery. You're not going to sleep with your brother's wife. You're not going to steal from your brother, as Leviticus 19 and 11 says. You're not going to lie against your brother and bring up a false charge against him. You're not going to covet your brother's house. You're not going to want the things your brother has. You're not going to want his wife, his servants, his maids, his ox, or any of his possessions. That's how you're going to truly love your brothers. Let me get another one. Another example. This is Exodus chapter 23 and verse 4. If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see that the ass of him that hateth thee, if thou see the ass of him that hateth thee, lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help him. So even if you have a brother or sister you consider an enemy, you're not supposed to just let their donkeys or whatever they need help with, just sit there, or whatever animal might fall into a ditch, just sit there and just struggle. And you just ignore them. Yeah, I know that brother needs help and I see it, but I'm not going to help him. That's going off because they're not commandments. We see that we're supposed to help him anyway. Now, that's true love. You still have this. That could be, let me give an example. You can have an example. I mean, you have a brother or sister who's in the world, might be in your family, might not be in your family. It doesn't matter. And they don't really believe in the truth. They don't understand it, and the Lord just hasn't removed that veil yet. But you can still be cordial with them. You can still help them in a time of need, in a time of distress. You can still help them in an example of them having a ditch. I mean, having an ass in a ditch, right? So this can apply to brothers and sisters in the world as still helping them, even though you might not disagree with them doctrinally or in a sense of morality. But that still can be you showing brotherly and sisterly love, honestly, because you're still going out of your way to help your people, regardless of if you agree on a doctrine or not. But more so in this truth, how much more with the brothers and sisters you agree with? All right, so now let's go to 1 John chapter 3 and 16. Because I just wanted to demonstrate that when Yahweh Shai was saying, love thy neighbor as thyself, it really goes back to the law and the things that are commanded us in the law to show our brotherly and sisterly love. So Lord willing, that made sense. So let's continue. This is 1 John chapter 3 and verse 16. Hereby, let me zoom in on that. It's 1 John chapter 3 and verse 16. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. Same thing we just read in John chapter, I want to say 15 and 13. As hereby we perceive we the love of God, because he, who is the he, Yahweh Shai. And this isn't saying God came down and then died. That's crazy. That's what Christians teach. That he in this context is Yahweh Shai. Because he laid down his life for us, we ought to lay down our lives for our brethren, as we just demonstrated in the book of John. Right? So the same way you show that brotherhood, laying down your life for your brothers and sisters, is that same way you show love for them. Because that can really be spiritual when you think about it, because I won't go there yet. I'll hold off. I'll hold my tongue. But let's continue. Let's go to John chapter 3 and verse 14. We're going to jump up a couple verses. So this is John chapter 3 and verse 14. We know that we have passed from death unto life, because we love the brethren. He that loveth not his brother abideth in death. So if you don't love your brother, you're abiding in death, because loving your brother is an action. If you don't truly love your brother, what are you going to do? You're going to steal from him. You're going to lie from him. You're going to want what he wants. You're going to try to commit adultery. You're going to try to get him, I don't know, what's some other examples? You're going to steal from him. You're going to lie to him. You're going to try to do things that are unprofitable. You're going to bring up false reports. You're going to hate him within your heart, which you are not commanded to do. And that's how you're going to abide in death, because we know, like, if you go away from the commandments, that's been under Root 1, you're going to die, paraphrasing greatly. Right, so let's read on. Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. So it's the same comparison as if you hate your brother, you're the same as a murderer, because you don't wish well upon him. You ultimately wish, like, harm comes to him, basically, honestly. And you might not say it, you might try to hide it, but the Lord knows your thoughts, and you show it through your actions. And the Lord can reveal that to brothers and sisters if you're moving in that type of spirit. The one thing I'll always charge brothers and sisters to examine themselves. So let's go to 1 John chapter 2, verse 9. See what I want. Okay. This is 1 John chapter 2 and verse 9. In all these scriptures, I advise brothers and sisters to write down and just look over and meditate and really examine yourself on. Right? So now we go to 1 John 2 and 9. He that saith he is in the light and hateth his brother is in darkness even until now. So if you're saying, yeah, I'm in the truth. Yeah, I've been in the truth 4 years. I've been in the truth 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 11 years. I've been in the truth all this time. But if you still hate that brother, that sister, you still got that grudge against them, you're still in darkness. Because how are you reformed? How has your mind changed if you're still doing the things you were doing in the world? If you're still hating your brother, you're hating your brother in the world. You come to this truth and you still hate your people. You still hate your brothers and sisters. How is that you being in the light? How is that you putting off that old man if you're still entertaining those thoughts and those actions of that man? All right, so now we go to Deuteronomy 22. And I can't touch on that, so we'll jump down. You go to Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 17. This is Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 17. He that hath pity upon the poor, because so now we're gonna go on a different topic. We're gonna switch to, not a different topic, it's still the same realm of helping thy people, but in more so in giving alms, whether it be physical or spiritual. All right, so we touched on helping thy people spiritually, physically, loving thy people, not hating them within our hearts, not doing anything. Well, yeah, giving alms to our people, helping our people spiritually, mentally, showing that brotherly love, being there to help our brothers to the best of our ability, and also laying down our lives for our brethren and not hating our brothers in our heart. So I want to touch on that. Let's get that. Let's go to 1 John 4 and 20. Make sure I didn't touch on every point. So let's go to 1 John chapter 4 and verse 20. It's 1 John chapter 4 and verse 20. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he is a liar. For he that loveth not his brother whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? So if you're going around saying you love God, saying you're in the light, but you still secretly hate your brother, you are a liar. So how can you physically see your brothers, your sisters, and then hate them and not want to help them? But then you say you love God. Then how can you love the God whom you don't see when He commands us to love our brothers and sisters in that light that you claim that you're in? The Lord isn't dealing with that hypocrisy. So now let's go to Proverbs. We're back on the topic of alms and helping our people. So Lord willing, brothers and sisters may see this and may get into the algorithm, and the ones that need to hear this will at the time the Lord chooses. All right, so now let's go to Proverbs chapter 19 and verse 17. He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord. So you give unto your poor brothers and sisters, just like you're giving unto the Lord. And that which he hath given, will he pay him again. As we just read in as we read a minute ago in Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 2. Like if you don't receive repayment or a recompensation from a brother and sister, the Lord is going to recompensate you. As we're seeing it right here, the Lord is going to pay you again. Because it's like you're making an effort to lend unto your people, and the Lord sees that. So now let's go to Tobit 4 and 17. This is Tobit chapter 4 and verse 17. Pour out thy bread on the burial of the just, but give nothing to the wicked. Now, when it comes to our people, we want to have discernment and not just give to everyone, because some people can misuse that for wickedness. And that's the truth of the matter. Like you want to be spiritual when you give out these alms. Now we know we can't really do anything. You can't really change the fact that if we give them food, water, or clothing, they can misuse that and sell it and then do whatever wickedness they're gonna do with it. We can't. If that's the case, we shouldn't help our people at all, and we wouldn't dare say that. But we should use wisdom on the sense of our end of not giving them money to literally go buy these drugs or things that are going to destroy their vessel. It doesn't always have to be drugs, right? But you want to have discernment of who you lend to and who you help, right? Because the scriptures talk about that as well, like helping certain individuals while they be in the truth as well, who you know don't really pay back much. They don't really want to help you. They don't really want to do this and that. To really show that brotherly love, you gotta watch out for those brothers and sisters. You gotta watch out for those who don't want to show that same love that you show. Now, some brothers and sisters may take time to build them up to really get them to understand what it means to love each other. But all the more, I'm speaking on those who deliberately go out of their way to hate their people, even in the truth, to show that contempt and that bitterness and that envy. Right, so now let's go to Tobit 4 and 7. We're going to jump up. So this is all dealing with wisdom of who you want to know who to give alms to. And there's nothing wrong with giving food, water, and clothing. I have to stress that. Yes, ultimately we can't control what they do with it, but we can control what kind of resource we give them. Right. So now let's go to Tobit 4 and 7. Give alms of thy substance, and when thou givest alms, let not thine eye be envious, neither turn away thy face from any poor, and the face of God shall not be turned away from thee. Now you deal with this chapter. This is Tobit giving advice to his son Tobias. And I go here just to stress the importance of how Tobit knew the importance of helping people. They want to give according to thy substance. And don't be envious or turn away thy face from the poor, because like you're giving unto the Lord, as you just went to. All right, so now let's go to Proverbs 21 and verse 13. Because there's also a condition if you do turn away your eyes from the poor, if you never want to help your people, and you're just always looking down upon them as if you're a heathen, as if like the heathen do. Here it is, you're praying for mercy from the Most High. You want mercy and forgiveness from the Most High, but you don't show mercy to your poor brothers and sisters. You don't show mercy or forgive your brothers and sisters in this truth. The Lord sees that, and He's not dealing with the hypocrisy. This is Proverbs chapter 21 and verse 13. Whoso stoppeth his ears at the cry of the poor, he also shall cry himself and shall not be heard. So here you are, you see your brothers and sisters, you know you have some type of resource to help them, whether it be food, water, clothing, or any of that type of resource. And here it is, you just walk past them, you drive past them, you ignore them as hard as you can. The Lord sees that. The Lord definitely sees that. And the same time you're here crying, asking for Most High for mercy, He's not going to show it because you didn't show that mercy to your own people. It's just deep, man. You gotta really understand this stuff. This stuff. Let's go back to Tobit. You go to Tobit 4:8. This is Tobit chapter 4 and verse 8. If thou hast abundance, give alms accordingly. The same thing we just read in Ecclesiastes 29:20. Like, give according to your ability. Use wisdom. Understand you still have a situation in your personal life. You still have to maintain, but if you can help your people, do it. You get more reward from helping your people than not helping your people. If thou have but a little, be not afraid to give according to that little. So you want to be able to give according to that little, even if you have a little, because you know the Lord is going to repay you again. You have faith in that. You believe that, and you walk in that. And now let's go to Ecclesiastes 11 and 11. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 11. There is one that laboreth and taketh pains. Or Ecclesiastes, Salakia. Ecclesiastes 11 and 1. Salakia. What is that? This is Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 1. Cast thy bread upon the waters. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 1. Cast thy bread upon the waters, but thou shalt find it after many days. So you want to cast that bread upon the waters because you're going to find it after many days. I'm going to cast that resource, cast that understanding, whether it be physical bread or resources, or it can be spiritual. As bread can be referenced to understanding. Cast it among the waters, cast it amongst the people, for you're going to find it, for the Lord is going to recompensate you. So now let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 35. Because you want to take joy when you give alms. You want to take joy in helping your people and helping God's chosen people, which you are a part of. You want to take joy in that and make it as if you're giving up to the Lord. You're showing the Lord that you actually love your people. You want to do everything you can to love your people. This is Ecclesiastes 35, starting at verse 9. And all thy gifts show a cheerful countenance, and dedicate thy tithes with gladness. You want to show that cheerful countenance? You want to dedicate your tithes with gladness. Be happy that you help supporting your brothers and sisters, because they may not get that support anywhere else. Verse 10, give unto the Most High, according as he hath enriched thee. So once again, we see that one, the Most High gives increase. And then two, you're supposed to give unto the Lord the increase he gave you. Here it is, the Lord gave you all these resources, whether it be small or little. He gives you these resources, and then you just like, nah, I'm not going to give to the Lord. I'm not going to be cheerful. It's not enough. It's not what I want. I'm not content. That's ungrateful. And the Lord can take that and then leave you even in a worse state than you were before. So you want to be in a cheerful countenance. You want to be glad when you're giving tithes, even when that's towards the Most High and towards helping your people. Read verse 10 again. Give unto the Most High according as he hath enriched thee. And as thou hast gotten, give with a cheerful eye. It's still just seeing this whole encompass of being cheerful and glad when you're giving tithes and offerings. Right, verse 11. For the Lord recompenseth, and will give thee 7 times as much. Same thing we read in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. The same thing we read in Tobit. The Lord will repay you. You just have to have that cheerful countenance and show that love towards your people. Oh, like you read in Proverbs 19. Slovakia. Now let's go to Ecclesiastes. Well, we don't have to go to that one. Let's go to Tobit 4 and 21, because this is the point I wanted to touch on as well. For the Lord will give thee 7 times as much. Now, so let's see what Tobit said to his son. What sound advice he gave to his son. So this is Tobit chapter 4 and verse 21. And fear not, my son, that we are made poor, but thou hast much wealth, if thou fear God and depart from all sin, and do that which is pleasing in his sight. So even if you're poor, you may not have enough to help that brother or sister physically. You still have much wealth. because you fear the Most High and you departed from all sin and you're trying to get right with Him and doing the things that pleases Him. Because what did Yahweh Shai tell us in Matthew 6:33? Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you. So the Lord can't give you these things. You just got to be willing to seek Him first, put Him first, and have faith in Him and His Son and keep His law. Now let's jump up to verse 14. This is Tobit chapter 4 and verse 14. Let not the wages of any man which hath wrought for thee tarry with thee, but give him it out of hand. For if thou serve God, he will also repay thee. Have you just read 3 other scriptures supporting this sound advice? For if thou serve God, he will also repay thee. Be circumspect, my son, in all things thou doest, and be wise in all thy conversation. This is sound advice Tobit is giving his son Tobias. And so let's jump up to verse 16. Give of thy bread to the hungry, and of thy garments to them that are naked, and according to thy abundance give alms. So the same thing we read in the same chapter of Tobias is giving abundance to thy ability. And let not thy eye be envious when thou givest alms. You don't want to be envious of your brother sister, like, man, I gotta give him this alms. I gotta do this. I gotta help them, man. I don't want to do this, but I gotta do it. Like, brother, that's not being sincere, nor is that showing love. Here it is, you're out here. Someone is genuinely trying to help their people, and you're out here. They might not have the resources, they might not have the abundance. They can help their people, but they're still striving. And here it is, this brother, this sister is out here acting as if it's a burden to help their people, acting as if it is so grievous unto them that their brothers and sisters in their captivity are that's to the state and need help, and they're just so bitter and envious because they have to help them. That's off, man. You got to check yourself if you're moving in that spirit, myself included. All right, so let's get back to the topic. Let's go to now Ecclesiasticus 7 and 10. Well, I'm not going too fast, but it just needs to be said. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 7 and verse 10. Be not faint-hearted when thou makest thy prayer. So don't be, just to touch on this entire verse in its totality. You don't want to be faint-hearted when you make it a prayer, because you can even pray for your brothers and sisters. You can even show that love by even praying for them. That's another example of giving alms. You're having that love to where you want to see them grow, and you want to ask the Most High to help them on His will, for His will's sake, on His behalf, on His Son's behalf, right? And neglect not to give alms. So don't neglect to give alms to your people when there's an occasion to do good, whether it be helping them understand His word or helping them physically, spiritually. So now let's go to. Do we want to go? I don't think we need to. But we can. Let's go back to Tobit. We go to Tobit chapter 4 and verse 9. Now this is all just some. And we're going to the law, we're going to Yahweh Shai teaching. We're also going into the wisdom of helping our people. All right, so now let's go to Tobit chapter 4 and verse 9. For thou layest up a good treasure for thyself against the day of necessity, because that alms doeth deliver from death. Because those alms they will deliver you from death. The Lord can look upon that and give you a lesser judgment or show mercy upon you because of what you've done and the support and the love you show them towards your people. Right? And suffer not to come into darkness, for alms is a good gift unto all that give it in the sight of the Most High. Because the Lord sees that. He sees all things. The Most High beholds the good and the evil. It talks about in Proverbs 15. All things are naked unto him in Hebrew. So we understand that the Lord sees everything, and that we all going to be judged according to our works. We have angels writing down everything that we do. So with that understanding, we should want to exemplify and show the Most High that we really want to take heed to His word and do what He commands us in faith. Let's go to Tobit 12 and 9. Still touching on the same point of giving alms and alms delivered from death. So this is Tobit chapter 12 and verse 9. For alms doeth deliver from death, and shall purge away all sin. Those that exercise alms and righteousness shall be filled with life. So if you're exercising alms, both spiritual and physical, and you're exercising righteousness, meaning you're practicing righteousness. 'Cause what do you do when you exercise? You're practicing. You're getting yourself in shape. So if you're exercising righteousness, you're practicing and getting yourself right in accordance to the law. Because that's what it means to be righteous. Did you get that? You got Deuteronomy 6 and 25. Because what does it mean to be righteous? Just for edification's sake. Because Christians throw it all the time. Apologists, I don't know, just anyone in general who comes against this word. Those just aren't the only two people, but those are the ones we face the most. This is Deuteronomy 6 and 25. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God as he had commanded us. And it's and so we see that it's going to be our righteousness if we observe to do the commandments. So we see righteousness being Salakia. We see in righteousness being compared to keeping the commandments and observing them. So now let's go to Ecclesiastes 3 and 30. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 30. Water will quench a flaming fire, and alms making an atonement for sins. I'll make sure I'm showing up on it. Okay, I am. Okay, all praises. This is Ecclesiastes 3 and 30. Water will quench a flaming fire, and alms make an atonement for sins. So the alms is going to deliver you from death, going to make atonement for your sins, and it's going to allow you to see that mercy from the Most High. So let's go to Matthew 10 and 8. This is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 8. Now, this is dealing with the apostles and what he commanded the apostles, but there's just one point I wanted to touch on. So this is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 8. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. And this is all the things the apostles did. The disciples, Salakia. Freely you have received, freely give. So you want to be able to freely give as you've freely. Salakia. You want to freely give as you freely receive. As the Lord, I want to apply a spiritual aspect. As the Lord, he freely gave you this understanding, this knowledge and wisdom. And he freely gave you resources in abundance. So how much more should you freely give this understanding to your people? You knowing certain certain foundational scriptures and understanding to help your brothers and sisters. How much more physically if possible. So now let's go to Luke chapter 6 and verse 35. Because I like this one. Luke 6 and 35 is really fundamental for me to understand as well. So this is Luke chapter 6 and verse 35. But love your enemies. Now we know this isn't talking about literal enemies. Yahushua isn't telling us to love the Moabite, to love the Ammonite, to love the Edomite, to love the Ishmaelite, to love the Cushite, the Ethiopian, Cushite, like it, the Canaanite, who was it? The Japhite. You're not telling us to love any other nation. These enemies are talking about your people. Right? And do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. And your reward shall be great, and ye shall be the children of the highest, for he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. So you want to do good to your enemies, as we even established in Exodus 23. It can be of your people. And do good and lend, hoping for nothing again. So you want to lend to your people, freely you receive, freely give, and hope for nothing again. Because that's truly wanting to help your people. Like, nah, I don't. And that's really humble. Like, I don't need it. It's just, I wanted to do what the Lord commanded and help you because you're in a destitute state. I really wanted to show my love for you by giving you this and helping you spiritually. All right, verse 36. Be ye merciful as your Father also is merciful. That same thing is echoed in Matthew, showing you that there's no real difference if you go to Matthew or Luke in this instance. So I know let's go to James chapter 5 and 16. Because as I mentioned in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, you can pray for your brothers and sisters. You can pray for them. That's a form of showing love. This is James chapter 5 verse 16. So I keep it with me. Confess your faults one to another and pray for one another that ye may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So if you're confessing your faults to that brother or sister, they're going to bear you up because they're going to be born for adversity. They're going to be strong enough to bear your burdens and be in that meek and lowly estate to know that they can be tempted in the same. But nonetheless, they're still striving to help you to the best of their ability. Oh, it's a lot here. They're still striving to help you to the best of their ability. Let me see where we're going to go now. For time's sake, I will just let me go to First Peter chapter 5. Let's see this for a while. Okay, no, we don't want to go there. Let's go to Ecclesiastes. Bear with me, Slovakia. Slovakia, bear with me. Just going through something. Bear with me. Okay, Slovakia. So this is James chapter 5, verse 9. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest ye be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. So you want to be holding a grudge against your brothers and sisters, as it's in our law. We are not to hold grudges to Leviticus 19 and 18, I believe. So that's really you hating your brother if you're sitting here holding this long grudge against your brothers and you haven't forgiven them for it. And it goes back to my point earlier, how you want this mercy from the Most High, but you're not showing it you're not showing it towards your brothers. So now I want to touch on a couple things. Just on the mercy aspect and not holding grudges. And then we'll end it off with that. Let's go to Matthew 18. We'll start at verse 15. So this is Matthew chapter 18, starting at verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother, Salaki, bear with me. Salaki, bear with me. So this is Matthew chapter 18 and verse 15. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. So if a brother has made you feel some type of way, he's offended you, take that up with that brother. Don't bear false, not bear false witness. Don't go gossip. Don't like little women. And you sisters, don't go around telling your business to every sister. Brothers, don't go telling your business to every brother. Know that counselor who you can go to about your issues. But the point of me wanting to stress this point is that take it to that brother or that sister directly. Don't go around to everyone else. Don't go around to everyone else telling them about what this brother or sister did to you instead of going to them directly. That's cowardly, and we're not moving like that in this truth. Go to that person directly and confess that fault. Not confess that fault. Tell him his fault. Like tell that brother or sister, hey, you offended me in this area. I just didn't like the way that you did that. And if they're meek, they're humble, if they're truly sorry for what they done, or they didn't intentionally try to offend you, they can discuss things with you. They can talk over things with you. All right, but if I read on. Now that's a case by case basis, as every fault a brother can charge it to be a fault when it's not really a fault, it can be correction. So it's really case by case, but generally if the brother might have done something to you unintentionally and you tell him his fault, like you offended me in this way, I don't know if you meant to do it or not, but I'm offended in such and such. He should be an understanding brother or sister to be understanding in that area. But verse 16, but if he will not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of two or three witnesses every word may be established. That's quoting the law. Deuteronomy 17 and 19, I believe. But this is Matthew 18, and I'll jump down to verse 21, because I really just wanted the point of taking that trespass to your brother or sister directly. Let's jump down to verse 18 and 21. Now this is us, yeah. Then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? So this Peter asking, how long should I offend? How long should I forgive this brother that's offended me? 7 times? Yahushua said to him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Meaning just you need just forgiving your brother a lot. Because we're gonna expound on that as well in Luke. And now let's go there. When he says 70 times 7, it just means a lot. It's forgiving your brother and being merciful unto your brother a lot. Let's go to Luke chapter 17 and verse 3 through 4. So this is Luke chapter 17, verse 3. Take heed to yourselves. If thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him, and if you repent, forgive him. So if your brother does something that offends you, correct him, tell him his fault, tell him what he did wrong, and if he truly did wrong, and he repents from it, means he stops doing that fault, forgive him. Verse 4. And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, going back to what Peter said about how much should I forgive him? 7 times? And 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him. So you still got to forgive that brother. Now you might not be around them, you might distance yourself, but you still have to be that merciful brother or sister, the same way you want the Lord to be merciful unto you. So now let's go to Luke chapter 6, verse 36. This is Luke chapter 6 and verse 36. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Just the point we touched on earlier, I believe. Yes, we did touch on it earlier, but it doesn't hurt me reiterating the same point of being merciful. And now let's go to Matthew chapter 6, because I want to touch on that now. Let's go to it. I won't speak too much. Let's go to Matthew chapter 6 and verse 14. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. So if you forgive your brothers in that trespass 70 times 7, more than 7 times, however many times they need to be forgiven and they repent, you still show that mercy unto them. The Lord is going to show mercy and forgiveness unto you. But, verse 15, but if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespass. And I'm going to touch on more of that in the wisdom of Sirach. So if you don't forgive men in their trespass, the Lord ain't going to forgive you. It's that simple. There's no way around it. If you can't show that merciful nature unto your brothers, which the elect will have, if you're striving to be the elect and you're not showing that merciful nature, you got to check yourself and examine your spirit. So now, let's go to Hebrews 4 and 31 through 32. So this is Hebrews chapter 4. Ephesians, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. 31 through 32. This is Ephesians chapter 4 and 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. So you want to let go of that bitterness, put away that wrath, put away that anger, that clamor, that evil speaking, because that goes on in Israel. A lot of evil speaking goes on. Be put away from you with all malice. So put malice away from you as well. And be ye kind one to another. So be that merciful, faithful brother unto your people. Be tenderhearted. Have that compassion on your people. forgiving one another, and forgive your brothers and sisters, whether they be in the world or in the truth, that might offend you. Forgive them and show mercy unto them, even as God for Hamashiach's sake hath forgiven you. So now let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 28 and verse 2. Ecclesiastes 28, that's a heavy chapter as well. A lot of chapters in the book of Sirach, Ecclesiastes is heavy, which I recommend brothers and sisters read on their spare time. This is Ecclesiastes 28 and verse 2. Forgive thy neighbor the hurt that he hath done unto thee. So shall thy sins also be forgiven when thou prayest. So if you forgive your brother, you forgive the trespass he did against you, or the hurt that he did against you, your sins are going to be forgiven when you pray, because the Lord is going to forgive you, because you forgave that brother or sister. And this isn't mean, take this to mean thy neighbors, everyone, and now you forgive the white man, you forgive the Arabs, you forgive all these other nations that had us in captivity. That is not talking about that. We know that according to prophecy, they're going to be slaves in the kingdom. They're going to receive the judgments for what they've done to God's chosen people. And there's a judgment coming to them. It isn't talking about them, because the Lord is going to get up with them for what they've done. Right, so now that's a different topic for a different time, however. But the point of this is to show you that if you forgive your brothers and sisters, your people, the Lord is going to forgive you. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 22 and 25. This is Ecclesiastes 22 and 25. And I will not be ashamed to defend a friend. Don't be ashamed to defend that brother and sister. Don't be ashamed to help that brother or sister. Neither will I hide myself from him. Because even in Deuteronomy 22 and 1 through 4, it talks about not hiding yourself from your brothers and sisters, even when they need help. I'll leave that for homework for brothers and sisters to go look up on. That can be some added to your repertoire on how you should love your people. Now let's jump up. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 22 and 23. Be faithful to thy neighbor. Be faithful to that brother and sister in his poverty, that thou mayest rejoice in his prosperity. Be that brother born for adversity. Be that friend that sticketh closer to a brother. Do good times and the bad. Don't just be there for that brother when he's doing good, when he's just prospering. Be there for that brother when he's in a lower state. Bear that brother's infirmities and be there when you're in your time of being strong. Abide steadfast unto him in the time of his trouble, that thou mayest be heir with him in his heritage. For a mean estate is not always to be contemned, nor the rich that is foolish to be had in admiration. They're just saying him that is not in the best estate is not always to be condemned or looked down upon, nor is the rich that is foolish always to be admired. And the scriptures talk about that as well. In Ecclesiastes 13, but like riches, it can deceive someone. It can corrupt the minds of many, and it can allow people to have a distorted or biased view. But nonetheless, I want to go to Ecclesiastes 29. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 29 and verse 1. He that is merciful will lend unto his neighbor, and he that strengtheneth his hand keepeth the commandments. Lend to thy neighbor in his time of need, and pay thou thy neighbor again in due season, which we touched on earlier. Verse 3, keep thy word and deal faithfully with him, as we just read in Ecclesiastes 22, 25, 22, 23. Keep thy word and deal faithfully with him, and thou shalt always find the thing that is necessary for them. So be faithful unto your people, your brothers and sisters, even in their lowest state, even in their best estate. Help them spiritually, mentally, physically, if possible. All right, so now let's go to Ecclesiastes. Let's jump down. We're going to touch on this point again, just to end it off with this. So this is Ecclesiastes 29 and verse 8. Yet have thou patience with that man in his poor state, and delay not to show him mercy. Help the poor for the commandment's sake. Help your people for the commandment's sake of loving your own people. And turn him not away because of his poverty. Lose thy money for thy brother and thy friend, that it not rust under a stone to be lost. Use your resources to help your brothers and sisters in wisdom. Don't let it just sit and collect dust if you know you have no need for it, but you see your brothers and sisters do. So I want to end off with this. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 28. The Lord will, the brothers and sisters examine themselves and see where they lack, and to strengthen those things which remain that are ready to die. So in Revelation chapter 3. So let's go to Ecclesiastes 28 and start at verse 2. Forgive thy brother the hurt that he hath done unto thee, so shall thy sins also be forgiven without prayers. Because there's a lot of grudging that goes on in Yasharallah. There's a lot of bitterness, envy, covetousness. All these things we got to purge from us and be that new man and be that light to our people. Verse 3. One man beareth hatred against another. That brother or sister, they got that secret envious eye, that secret hatred towards their people. And do what he seek pardon from the Lord, be the same people asking the Most High for forgiveness and mercy, but not showing that mercy to their people. He showed no mercy to a man, which is like himself, and doeth he ask forgiveness of his own sins. You're here not showing mercy to your brothers and sisters who might slip up, do some fault unawares, and you're holding that grudge against them. And you expect the Lord to forgive you? I think not. Let's go to verse 5. If he that is but flesh nourish hatred, if you let that hatred just build up inside of you, just fester and grow, who will entreat for pardon of his sins? Remember thy end, and let enmity cease. Remember corruption and death, and abide in the commandments. I want to leave off of this. Leviticus 19 and 17. This is Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 17. Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. You should not even hate your brother in your mind or through your actions. I should say, you shouldn't hate your brother through your actions, let alone even thinking of hating your brother. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor. You can correct them and not suffer sin upon him. Meaning you don't let him sin. Don't encourage sin and don't make excuses for it. Don't be a respecter of persons. Right? Reading on in verse 18. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. For I am the Lord. Because the Lord said so. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You don't hate your people. You correct them when they're in sin, and you don't bear any grudges towards them. So, Lord willing, this may have been edifying for at least one brother or sister. But with that, I would like to give all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, whose true name is Yahweh, through his only begotten Son, whose true name is Yahweh Shai. And I would like to say a mighty, strong shalom to you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you so-called Israelites according to the Bible. Shalom to all the brothers pushing this truth on highways and hedges. Shalom to all the sincere sisters and the sincere children in this truth. Let's all continue to strive to seek our God, to be sincere, and to have faith in him and his Son in these last days, as these times wax worse and worse. Well, with that, I'd like to say shalom.